to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I think, it was probably one of the worst kept secrets in boxing. Reports have been going around for a while that Joshua would be facing Jermaine Franklin at the O2 on April 1st. Now confirmed. Get your immediate reactions, please, Spencer.
Yeah, I think it's a good fight for Joshua to come back from. I think that we saw Jermaine Franklin. He was an unknown quantity when he boxed Dillian Whyte in November. When he come over, people thought that Dillian Whyte was just going to blow him away, and he proved a tough customer. A lot of people felt that he may have even nicked that fight against Dillian Whyte. It was razor tight anyway. So I think he comes with some credentials, and he's obviously got a lot of ambition. You know, so the only loss on his record was to Dillian Whyte, although there's no real names on the record. So we didn't really know too much about him. But from what we saw in November, you know, he's a tough customer, and he's got a lot of ambition, and he'll see this as a massive opportunity against Anthony Joshua, who's coming off those 2 losses to Alexander Usyk. So I think it's a good fight. I think it's a good fight, you know, to come back to. I know the public probably won't give Joshua the credit for this opponent. You know, they wanted to see someone with probably a more recognisable name. They probably would like to have seen the Dillian Whyte rematch or something like that. But I don't think it's a bad fight. I think, you know, you've got to allow Joshua that. He's now teamed up with Derek James. He's over in America. He's working on new things. He wants to become a 3-time world heavyweight champion. And this is the first step back. You know, confidence is a massive thing within a boxer. And Anthony Joshua is lacking that confidence at the moment. So he needs this fight. He needs to win, and he needs to win in style to regain some of that confidence if he's going to get himself back in the title mix.
From what you saw with Jermaine Franklin against Dillian Whyte, how do you think this pans out between AJ and Jermaine?
Jermaine's going to bring it. You know, I think he showed that with Dillian Whyte. You know, he's a tough customer. Dillian Whyte, as we know, is very heavy-handed, and Jermaine took some big shots there, and he comes straight back. You know, the kid's got heart. You know, and he's got, like I say, he's got ambition. He's got that winner's mentality. So that makes him dangerous against someone like Joshua, who's coming off the 2 losses to Alexander Usyk. So, you know, his confidence is at a low. So when you weigh it all up, you go, it's all about opportunity. And this is a massive opportunity for Franklin. And he'll feel that he's got Joshua at the right time. And it's a must-win fight for Anthony Joshua as well. You know, he needs to not just win, but he needs to look good in doing it as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. It really is. I think actually, when I saw it, I thought, okay, that's a good opponent for Joshua. You know, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Joshua performs on April the 1st. And let's hope he can regain some of that confidence. He needs to find the confidence that he had when he boxed Klitschko back in 2017, where he had that rawness, that something about him where he rolled the dice, man. He took everything to him, because when he boxed Alexander, if that Joshua that beat Klitschko boxed Usyk, then we may have had a different outcome. But by the time he boxed Alexander Usyk, he'd had those losses to like Andy Ruiz. He'd got that loss to Andy Ruiz, and the confidence had been damaged. And you could see he was a little bit hesitant, and he allowed Usyk the time and the space that he needs to get off with with his shots and whatnot. So Joshua needs to regain that rawness that once took him to the world heavyweight title. And I think if he can find that, then he puts himself back in the mix. And if he can't, it's going to be a tough road back.
Do you think that rawness and that slight, that mentality that you're talking about that we saw from Anthony Joshua early on in his career, do you think that might have been damaged because, one, the Klitschko fight, what happened there, and of course then the Andy Ruiz fight in New York? Do you think that might have damaged him psychologically? Yeah,
definitely. It's not, there's no 2 ways about that. You know, you can see the psychological damage in the performances after that. You know, even in the second Andy Ruiz fight, you know, he boxed to instructions, and he had to do what he had to do against Ruiz, who admittedly turned up in terrible shape. But, you know, Joshua had to go in there with the demons of getting knocked out in the fight before. So
how do you get back to that then, Spence? How do we get back to that?
Well, that's the $1 million question, Umar. That is the $1 million question. That can that psychological damage be repaired? You know, when you look through the history of the sport and the fighters that have, you know, some fighters get knocked out and they come back and they've still got that rawness about them and they still do, and other fighters get psychologically damaged. And that's a tough thing, I've got to tell you, to overcome. And I think that how does he overcome it is by, I always think there's been a missing piece of the jigsaw since that loss where Joshua took himself on the road. He was looking for a new trainer and he hasn't really felt comfortable with the team around him. And I think that to get that back, to get that confidence back that he once had, he needs to feel totally confident in the team around him. And that's what we'll find out with Derek James on April the 1st, whether he can bring that to Joshua and reinstall that confidence that's needed. Otherwise, it's going to be a really tough road.
Obviously, I take it you're going to pick Anthony Joshua like the whole world will. But what's your gut feeling saying? Do you think he stops Jermaine Franklin?
I hope so. I think that, and I think that the Joshua that I know could stop Jermaine Franklin, but it depends how he approaches the fight. Like I say, I think that he needs to be more spiteful about his attacks and to sort of and take the chance, take the opportunity when it's there, not be too hesitant. So look, you'd be stupid not to pick Anthony Joshua, but Jermaine Franklin is a live opponent, and I think he proved that against Dillian Whyte, and he'll be coming with confidence, and he'll be seeing it as a massive opportunity, and that makes him dangerous.
Of course, it would be brilliant to see him get a quick stoppage for his confidence, etc., and sort of a highlight reel knockout going around everywhere in the first couple of rounds. But I guess a counter argument to that is if it only does go 1 or 2 rounds, it's not ideal maybe in terms of preparation for a world title shot, working with Derek James. Probably does want to bag a few rounds in before getting a stoppage.
Well, no, do you know what? I see it different to that, because I think that Joshua's got the experience now. He's had the experience now. It's all about the confidence for me. It's all about the psychological side of things, the mental side of things. That plays a huge part in boxing. And Josh, that's what's missing from his game at the moment. I don't think that he may not totally believe in himself. The psychological damage that we've spoken about has been done, and that needs to be repaired. And I think the first or second round knockout would help him along the way, as opposed to getting taken into the trenches a little bit and rounds under his belt, because it's not about rounds under his belt. Alexander Usyk, he lost last time on a split decision, although on the scorecards, although we saw that Usyk run away with it in the last 3 or 4 rounds. But it wasn't it's not like he needs the rounds. I don't think it's the rounds that he needs. I think it's the psychological side of things, the mental state of mind that needs repairing. That's what it is. And I think that an early knockout would help Joshua. That's the way I see it.
Okay. A couple of more things before we close off, please, Spence. Dillian Whyte was talking about this fight, and he said, I would have been better off losing to Franklin and getting the AJ fight. It's protecting AJ. Do you see where Dillian's coming from?
I know what he's saying, but I understand the business side of things with Anthony Joshua, and I understand the rebuilding process with Anthony Joshua. And I believe that if Dillian Whyte would have lost that fight, then I think that Jermaine Franklin would have got the job on the fact of beating Dillian Whyte. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I think that Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua have got history. Like Dillian Whyte beat Joshua as an amateur, and his style is always going to cause Joshua problems. And it's always going to it's always going to be a tough fight for Anthony Joshua. And I think at this stage of his career, he needs a real rebuilding process, as opposed to potentially a career-threatening loss to Dillian Whyte. So I understand that. I believe that Dillian Whyte will happen in the summer, but I understand why they've chose Franklin first. Like from the business side of things, and for Anthony Joshua and the rebuilding side of things, he was the obvious opponent.
Okay. As that fight was announced, DAZN also made a couple of announcements. Obviously, they said this fight won't be on pay-per-view. It'll be part of your subscription. However, I don't know if you've seen, Spencer, the price for the monthly subscriptions have changed slightly. I don't know if you saw that. It went up.
No, I haven't seen that, no.
Oh, okay, so I don't know. I'll still tell you about it.
I mean, I paid for it, but I haven't seen it, so it's one of those.
Well, you could still, at the moment, it was $9.99. You can still opt for that, but if you want to cancel it within 30 days, you have to pay $19.99. So that's changed as this schedule's just been announced for DAZN. But yeah, if you hadn't seen it, a bit pointless asking, really.
Yeah, no, but listen, I understand again the business module, and I understand what it is with DAZN, and we know that the money they've been hemorrhaging over the last couple of years. I think they've put statements out they lose like 2.8 billion or something like that. They've got to make their money back somehow, and that's why I understand this whole YouTube thing that they're going down with the KSI and Logan Paul, etc., because they've got to get some sort of money back. The model that they've got at the moment maybe not working. And so they've got to change. They've got to try and, they can't keep losing money. So understand what they're trying to achieve by doing that. I think that, DAZN coming into boxing was always a big gamble because obviously it was on an app and it wasn't on the TV platform, etc. It's always going to be a big gamble, but you got to give them credit where credit's due. They've stuck to their guns. They're pushing on and, they're doing, they're still delivering good fights. So yeah, look, we understand that to make things work, they've got to change things up.
Spencer Oliver, thank you very much for your time. And I'll see you at Wembley Arena for the Sky Show this Saturday night. Yeah,
looking forward to that. Actually, it's a good show, this one, actually. Adam Azim is I think he's the next superstar of British boxing, if I'm totally honest, mate. He's like, you look back in history like Nazim Hamed, more recently Amir Khan, and I think he's on that sort of trajectory. I think that, he proved against Ryland Cholton last time out that he is the real deal. And it'll be a case of not so much of, it'd be how they're going to hold him back because he's that good. If you look at the opponents, like Ryland Cholton's a tough guy, man, tough customer. And the way that he dealt with him, you just go, it's going to be tough to hold him back as opposed to when they're going to let him go. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those ones. So, yeah, looking forward to it. So Saturday night's going to be good.
All right, Spencer, take care. See you then.
Take care, bro.
I'm going to share something with you that might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.